What's up, guys? How y'all doing today? And also, welcome to July's Top 5. I know I could have done this Top 5, or I should have done this as a ranking video when a certain film came out back in 2019, but pretty much everybody, and I mean everybody, was also doing this particular ranking. I just didn't want to add to your timeline. But knowing that a certain film, aka Deadpool and Wolverine, starts playing today. Well, I'm filming this today. It comes out tomorrow, so I'm putting out Thursday, guys. Get my point, guys. Knowing that Deadpool and Wolverine is coming out today, I figured it was just the right time for me to finally do my top 5 X-Men movies. X-Men was the movie that I still remember to this day as the one that really forged my love for comic book movies. Hence the reason why X-Men for me has a very special place. When it comes down to today's top 5, of course, the guidelines, even though I know all of you know them, for those of you coming by, which by the way, I'm going to save that momentarily, but still nonetheless, for those of you coming by my channel, and for those of you who have not seen my top 5s, just know that these are my personal favorite films of this franchise, and I guarantee that I know we're not going to agree on every single ranking, but hey, you know what, that is what film subjectivity is all about. We're not going to agree, and that's the beauty of film criticism. I know a lot of you are going to expect a ranking, but no, this is just a top 5, although I will throw in 2 movies because I wouldn't really feel right doing this video unless if I mentioned 2 particular films, which are X-Men Apocalypse, which I find to be very underrated, and then the Wolverine movie, which I completely understand has not the best third act. I mean, the third act really kind of tanks the movie, but the first 2 acts of the Wolverine are so awesome that I am going to say that the Wolverine at least deserves a mention. And also, I know that a lot of people are going to mention, is Deadpool 1 and 2 going to be included? For this particular thing, no. If you do want me to have my ranking of all those films, I'll put something in the comment section below. But for the time being, guys, this is just going to be my ranking of the mainline X-Men movies with the Wolverine movies, just to get that out of the way. Before I finally continue on, as if I haven't rambled enough already as it is, I just wanted to say, welcome to my channel, everybody. For those of you who are coming by my channel for the very first time, be sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss a future video, whether it's a future review, a future reaction, or a future top 5, or whatever I've coming your way. Please subscribe and also join me on my journey to 10K subscribers and beyond, because believe me when I say this, guys, I have a lot of cool shit coming your way. You're not going to want to miss it. And for those of you coming back to my channel, welcome back. You have no idea just how excited I am to see your faces once again. And also, let's start our conversation below. What are your top 5 favorite X-Men films? Give a couple of honorable mentions. Oh, and by the way, did I totally get Wolverine claws just for the sake of the thumbnail? I totally did, but holy crap, these are badass. Now that all being said, guys, let's, as they say in the trailer for Deadpool and Wolverine,
let's fucking go.
Let's fucking go.
Number 5.
Kicking off my top 5, at number 5 is the film that started it all, and that is X-Men. X-Men, as I just mentioned, when I was a kid, to my memory, was the first comic book film that I ever saw in theaters. And to this day, the first image that I saw on a big screen and for a superhero film was Hugh Jackman and this shot fighting Sabretooth on the Statue of Liberty. And that shot for me has been the most iconic superhero image really of my childhood and also going into my adult years. Just before X-Men came out, comic films weren't really looked at as serious as they could be because of films like Batman Forever, which I do enjoy. It has some enjoyable aspects to it, but Batman and Robin was the film that kind of tanked not just Batman films, but comic book films in general. But besides the fact that X-Men is just such a well-made film in general. I mean, I rewatched the film just a couple of days ago, and holy crap, we do not get films like this today. This is a movie that not only holds up spectacularly well, but it's a film that if people are trying on the comic book films, honest to God, I will show them X-Men. Because this is a movie that not only, by the way, has such a great ensemble cast, it has a great story, still visual effects that look absolutely amazing. This film came out either 2000 or 2001, and these effects look better than most MCU movies. While Hugh Jackman was essentially the face of the movie, Anna Paquin, I believe I'm pronouncing her name correctly, as Rogue, her story is the heart of this film, and her relationship with Hugh Jackman's Wolverine is the emotional core of the film. And if it wasn't for this working nearly as much as it did, I don't think X-Men would have worked nearly as well. I could go on for ages explaining why I find that X-Men holds up like such a fine wine, but I do have 4 other films I think do it just as good, which get into.
Number 4.
I love X-Men, but X2 is what I would call, in the words of Klipozinski describing Gears of War 2, bigger, better, and more badass. X2, X-Men United takes everything that made the original film, the first film, work so well, and doubles down and amplifies on the character, the story, the deeper story involving Wolverine, Hugh Jackman's Wolverine. The action sequences are even better. The VFX are absolutely outstanding, and not to mention as well, the greater depth of some of the characters, the introduction of newer characters like Lady Deathstrike, Pyro. The amount of things that this movie introduces, this movie should not have worked knowing how much this movie was taking on, but my god, X2 made it work, and then some. I guess if there was only one real issue I have with this movie, it's that there are times where I feel like this movie is setting up a lot of stuff and it kind of goes nowhere in some elements of the story, but otherwise, X2 X-Men United does other things really 99% of the other stuff so well that by the time this movie ends, are you looking forward to The Last Stand? Yes, but even though X-Men The Last Stand wasn't great, it was better than X-Men Dark Phoenix, can say that much for certain. What we have is one hell of a sequel, and that is why it's my number 4. When it came down to my numbers 2 and 3 spots, these 2 movies were battling it out between 2 and 3 and 2 and 3, really, for as long as I've seen these 2 movies. And I guess you guys can imagine what these 2 movies are. These 2 movies could still flip-flop as far as we're into the future, but at this moment right now, my number 3 is X-Men First Class. I remember going to the movies at the start of the movie season of that year with Hangover Part 2. And you guys can imagine the disappointment level I felt walking on the movie. And guess what came out the next weekend? X-Men First Class. Surprisingly, and it shocks me knowing this, that a lot of people were not looking forward to it. But was I looking forward to it? You know it. Especially, by the way, knowing that Matthew Vaughn made this movie, the guy who made Kick-Ass. I was very excited for this movie. I went to a midnight showing of this movie, by the way, before my SATs. I kid you not, guys. And holy crap, this movie delivered, and then some. The only reason why this movie is not my number 2 is because I feel like my number 2 does other things better than this movie. What does First Class have over my number 2? I can tell you guys right now. Matthew Vaughn's directing, and the musical score. The musical score for X-Men First Class, still to this day, are amongst my favorite superhero themes. Magneto's theme, which I still hear in my head from time to time, Cerebro's theme, the montage training music, Henry Jackman's score for X-Men First Class is just... it's one of my favorite superhero scores, it really is. But what Matthew Vaughn brought to X-Men First Class, I thought he did such a phenomenal job, especially knowing that he had less than a year to make this movie. And given that, and given all the time crunches he had, he really was, in my opinion, at least a top-tier X movie. The climatic sequence where they're trying to stop the Cuban Missile Crisis and trying to stop altogether World War III is one of my favorite third act sequences I have ever seen in a superhero film. And by the way, I still get chills seeing the sequence where Magneto pulls the satellite towards him and Professor X, coming out at a time when X-Men was derailing. I mean, X-Men Origins Wolverine, X-Men The Last Stand, those 2 films really did derail the franchise. And what First Class did, putting this thing back on course, just for another film to come back in and really put into high gear once again. First Class did a wonderful job. Awesome prequel.
Number 2.
My number 2 goes to, as y'all can imagine, Days of Future Past. If you had asked me this maybe a couple of years ago, I would have said that Days of Future Past was my number 3, and really, if you ask me again, maybe this might be my number 3, and First Class might be my number 2, but upon my most recent rewatch, Days of Future Past for me eclipsed First Class. What Days of Future Past does, better than First Class, it takes those things and eclipses what First Class does. Like, for example, the storytelling, Bryan Singer's directing, the writing, the performances, the incredible ensemble cast, the time travel aspect, the action sequences, the musical score. Hearing the X2 theme as Days of Future Past was starting up gave me more goosebumps than I ever expected, and not to mention as well, the VFX to this day hold up over 10 years later. Can you believe this movie came out over 10 years ago? Which, by the way, summer 2014, one of the best summer movie seasons, arguably the best summer movie season I had ever experienced as a theater goer. Seriously, summer 2014 was just perfection every sense. Anyways, getting back to the point here, guys. This movie should not have worked. It really should not have worked, but oh my god, did this movie eclipse every expectation I had, and then some. The exact sentence I used to describe X2, I'm going to bring that back here once again. Days of Future Past, in comparison to First Class, is a bigger, better, and more badass sequel, but triple that of what X2 did. This is easily the best X-Men movie out of all the X-Men movies. But there is one more film that does everything slightly better, and let's get to that movie.
It's number 1.
Come on, guys. You know what my number 1 X-Men movie is. I mean, it should be very freaking obvious, but for those of you who are still possibly wondering, my favorite X-Men film of all time, it's Logan. It should be very, very obvious. Hugh Jackman's portrayal of Wolverine is, to me, at least on a sentimental level, at least for my thing, is the best portrayal of a comic book character I have ever seen. And again, I'm going to relate to this the first time that I saw a comic book character being portrayed on the big screen. Hugh Jackman's portrayal as Wolverine, to me, has been something that I hold very, very dearly ever since I saw him fighting Sabretooth on the Statue of Liberty when I was, I want to say, like, what, 8, maybe 9 years old. Knowing that the time being that this was going to be Hugh Jackman's last portrayal as Wolverine, as y'all can imagine, guys, this was a movie that I had so many expectations for. I mean, my expectations for this movie, my anticipation for this movie before I saw it was just out of the freaking planet. This movie not only met every single expectation that I had for it, it surpassed them, it eclipsed them. I mean, this movie knocked that bar so out of the freaking park, like you can't even find that freaking ball. Like, that is how much this movie absolutely fucking rules. Logan is brutal, it's gritty, it's raw, but at the very center is a movie that has some of the best performances in a comic book film. Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, Patrick Stewart as Professor X, Daphne Keane as X-23, Boyd Holbrook. What James Mangold did for this character and for the legacy of Wolverine, my favorite comic book character ever, by the way. And then the subsequent years that I have seen Logan, it just gets better and better and better. When people have those conversations about what makes one of the greatest comic book films ever made, to me, Logan is one of those prime examples, because Logan is one of those movies that doesn't just do the character justice, but it's one of those movies that transcends the genre in a way that I didn't think it was possible. To James Mangold, to Hugh Jackman, to everybody involved, thank you for bringing not only one of the greatest comic book films ever made, but personally for me, one of my favorite films ever. To show how I feel about this movie, roll this clip.
It was perfect. Perfect. Everything, down to the last minute details.
Enough said, Logan is my number 1. And that is going to wrap it up for my top 5 favorite X-Men films. I hope y'all enjoyed it. If so, please hit the like button, or if you disliked my ranking, hit the dislike button. If you guys want to see my previous 2 videos, please click it right there. And of course, until my next review video goes live, I will see you all next time. Wait a second, let me do this. And I will see you all next time.